Alright, SSL Family Dad here with Simple Suburban Living, and today I just want to show you how to easily and cheaply stake up your growing tomato plants. Okay, so this is a problem that I deal with every single year, and that is, you know, we're expanding our gardens, we're growing more and more and more every year, and so I have to come up with ways to support all these growing plants. Tomato plants, cucumbers, whatever it is, I've got to build trellises or tomato cages and things. So one of the things I don't want to do is every year go out and spend a bunch of money on gardening supplies. So I don't want to go out and just buy brand new tomato cages. I've got about 40 or 50 tomato plants this year, and there's no way I'm going to go out and buy a new tomato cage for each one of those. There are lots of different options out there to make tomato cages out of cattle panels and all kinds of other very inexpensive materials. But what I'm trying to do is do some things for free, and so I don't want to eat into our investment in our garden and our return on investment by, you know, spending a whole bunch of money. So one of the things I found that worked really well last year is some very inexpensive materials for tomato cages. Now you'll see behind me I've got some of these bamboo sticks. I found these on clearance for, I think it was $1.50 for a pack of 5 of them. And these are 5 foot tall bamboo, basically stakes, and these work really, really well. So if you look around after garden season is kind of winding down, you can find very inexpensive materials like this. But even cheaper than that, I always save our sunflower stalks from last year's sunflower harvest, and I just let them, I stuck them off to the side and let them dry out and age for the year. And they're very hard. They're very strong. They're fairly brittle. If I smash it, you know, it will break in half. But as far as supporting a tomato plant, they'll work pretty well. Another thing you can use, obviously, is just sticks. I've got a couple, you know, branches and things like that fall down around here. It doesn't have to be anything super tall. Anything about 4 or 5 feet will work. But you know, a good size little, maybe 1-inch diameter stick will work fine as well. So the idea here is to show you don't have to have tomato cages to grow tomatoes. Tomato cages do work better, but you don't have to have them. And so I'll show you kind of what I'm doing to use these free or very cheap materials to support the tomatoes. Okay, so here's a pretty classic example of what I tend to do every year also, and that is I wait way too long to stake these up. So the ideal time to stake up the tomatoes is when they're very small, of course, and then tie them up as they get bigger. If you're like me and you get busy, the tomatoes just start to explode, and all of a sudden they're 4 feet tall, it seems like, and I don't get out here to get all of them done. So we're doing this a little bit late. This one here has some pretty good sized tomatoes on it already, but you know, it's just kind of laying on the ground here. That's fine. We'll get it staked up and it'll grow just fine. So you have a couple options to tie up the tomato plants or the vines. Twine, I just cut a bunch of pieces of this cheap twine. I think this was like $1.50 for this whole roll. A couple pieces of that will work just fine. Another thing that's free is you can use these little twisty ties or wire ties, whatever they're called. You know, things that tie your loaf of bread closed, or even they come in a lot of packaging and things like that. When you get new electronics, all the cords are wrapped in these things. So if you save those things, these come in real handy for lots of different projects. So we'll be using a few of these. This plant's a little bit too large, so I'm going to use some twine on this one. And all you're going to do is basically just drive I'm using one of our bamboo stakes here, and I just drove it in the ground about 1 foot with a rubber mallet, just a few inches away from the main, you know, where the plant's rooting into the ground there. And all I'm going to do is just loosely tie underneath a couple branches here along this pole. Looks like we got some mosquitoes out here hanging out in the shade. So we're not tying down here real tight. You know, we're not trying to choke the vine off. We just want a nice loose loop, just to kind of keep the vine rested up against the pole. So we're not really supporting it 100%. We're more guiding it instead. So it's also a good idea to kind of wrap the vine around a little bit, twist it around the pole, and this will grow up just fine. As long as they're off the ground, I'm happy. That's that. Alright, so as I said earlier, obviously you don't want to wait this long to stake up the tomatoes because it does make it a lot more difficult. You can end up damaging the plant and stuff like that, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who gets busy and doesn't have time to properly prune the tomatoes and all that kind of good stuff, especially when our gardens are getting quite a bit larger now. So I know there's also a lot of different opinions about how to prune tomatoes and different types of tomatoes and all that good stuff. I'm not a huge pruner. I don't cut off all the suckers, and a lot of times, like this one has like 2 trunks coming up. You know, this is Simple Suburban Living, so right, we try to keep things simple. I'm not convinced myself that it makes that much of a difference. I know when you prune off the suckers and all the lower branches and stuff like that, you do get a much taller tomato plant. It looks a little bit nicer, especially in greenhouses and that, where you can stake them up real high, hang them from the ceiling and stuff like that for your supports. But for this kind of stuff outside here, I'm happy with just kind of letting them grow how they grow, and we'll see what we get. Alright, well that's pretty much all there is to it. Just a real easy and inexpensive way to support your growing tomato plants. Anything from sunflower stalks, which work very well. I save these every year, to any branches or sticks. You can use old broomsticks. You could use obviously those bamboo stakes that I saw. There's also hardwood stakes I saw on sale. They were clearance at the big box stores. You can get all kinds of different things you can use. The cheapest thing to do is just to find some branches laying around, cut them into 4 or 5 foot lengths, the straightest pieces you can get, and use those. Twine, twisty ties, string, whatever you want to use to support them that way. And so you can get creative and be real cheap with it. Now, I also try to buy just a couple of nicer tomato cages every year just to kind of add to the collection. So over the years, I'll get more and more of those. The ones that I found to be the kind of the best are these. They're 3. They come with 3 stakes. It almost looks like rebar that's covered in like a vinyl or plastic, and then it has these little clips that supports that go in between. So it makes kind of a triangle, and then you just put these supports in as it grows up. I've had these for about 5 or 6 years, and they really have worked well. Surprisingly, none of them have broke, and they've been pretty durable. So I'll put a link in the description to these over on Amazon. I think they're between $12 and $15 a piece, so they're a little more expensive, but they do a very, very good job, as you can see here with this tomato plant. So, but as always, you guys have questions, comments, or maybe suggestions. I mean, tomatoes is like one of those things where you start to talk about how you deal with tomatoes, and there's a whole camp of people and arguments about how to grow tomato plants. So I'd love to hear all of those different ways. Honestly, put them in the comments, share them with me and everyone else that's watching and reading. How you support yours, how you prune them, how you grow them, whatever. I don't care. Throw it in the discussion. It'd be a great thing to talk about. So, like I said, if you guys have questions, let me know. Please hit thumbs up on the video if you found it useful, informational, or educational at all. And I'd love to hear that feedback. So, as always, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.